Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Master Series, your guide to intelligent production, brought to you by Entertainment Partners. I'm your host, Natalie Nelson. In the Master Series, we focus on important issues impacting the entertainment industry and its workers through in-depth discussions with legal, tax, technology, payroll, and production experts. And today's topic is Behind the Boom, why the UK is a hotspot for production. And we are joined by experts from across the industry who will be discussing why productions are so keen on the UK and how to best take advantage of the generous programs the UK has to offer. Two quick housekeeping items as we get started today. First is that we encourage you to post questions for our panelists using the Q&A section of the Zoom call. You may submit questions by clicking the Q&A icon in the navigation menu, and we'll do our best after our discussion to save time for questions. Also, please take 30 seconds to answer a short feedback survey after today's webinar. This includes the opportunity for you to give us feedback as well as suggest topics for future webinars. Your feedback is very important to us, so 30 seconds is all that we ask. Now let's meet today's panel. Today we are joined by Sam Collett, Senior Partner at FLB Accountants. Sam has over 20 years of experience in finance leadership positions as CFO and board director, and is experienced working with productions to support a range of finance and accounting assignments. Sam joined FLB Accountants in 2020 to help enhance and grow the offerings to the media and entertainment sector, and is currently managing clients with corporate accounting, production and post-production accounting, and UK tax incentive requirements. Previously, he was finance director for a leading private equity firm making investments in film and high-end television. Also with us is Lyndsay Duthie, CEO of the Production Guild of Great Britain. Lyndsay has 25 years of experience as a senior leader in the creative industries, with a background in television production, including credits with the BBC, ITV, C4, and Sky, as well as education. Lyndsay's academic career led her to become Professor of Media and the head of school for Film, Media, and Performing Arts at the University for the Creative Arts, as well as co-author of Bloomsbury's The TV Studio Production Handbook. She regularly appears on Sky, ITV, and BBC News as a media expert, and has held numerous board positions, including with Women in Film and Television, and is currently on the National Advisory Board for the British Film Commission. Also with us today is Bianca Gavin, Head of Production at Pulse Films, an accomplished and experienced production executive with over 20 years of experience in the film and television industry. She joined Pulse Films in 2020 as Head of Production for Scripted Film and Television, where she spearheads the production side of the studio's scripted slate, advising on all aspects from early stages of development to delivering world-class premium content, including the critically acclaimed second season of Gangs of London. Prior to Pulse Films, Bianca was a senior production executive for EU scripted originals at Amazon Studios, responsible for the streamer's first slate of dramas across the UK, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain, including the highly anticipated The Power and recently launched Jungle. Passionate about equity, inclusion, and breaking down barriers to entry, she is vice chair to the board of the Production Guild of Great Britain and on the executive committee for their Diversity and Inclusion Action Group. Also joining us is executive producer Callum McDougall, an accomplished veteran of the film and television industry with over 40 years of experience spanning roles including production runner, third and second AD, UPM, producer, and executive producer. Among his notable credits are Monty Python's Search for the Meaning of Life, The Beach, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and multiple films from the James Bond franchise, including License to Kill, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another Day, Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and Spectre. For Walt Disney Studios, his credits include the live-action 101 Dalmatians, the feature of the film the musical Into the Woods, Mary Poppins Returns, and he recently completed Snow White. A frequent collaborator with director Sam Mendes, McDougall also produced the critically acclaimed film 1917, which went on to win multiple Academy Awards and BAFTA Awards, as well as Golden Globes, DGA, PGA, and AFI Awards. He is a member of the Production Guild of Great Britain, the Directors Guild of America, and the Producers Guild of America. Also joining us is Samantha Perahia, MBE, Head of Production UK at the British Film Commission. Experienced in theatre stage management, film and television production, post-production, and locations, Samantha joined the British Film Commission in 2004. As head of production UK, she leads the UK team, providing tailored production support, guidance, and troubleshooting to major international film and television projects from development through delivery. And she oversees the BFC's work in supporting promotion of UK film and television infrastructure globally. She was instrumental in creation of the BFC's Working Safely During COVID-19 in Film and High-End Television Drama Production Guidance, which was launched in June of 2020. She is on the board of the Production Guild of Great Britain and was awarded an MBE in the Queen's New Year Honours List 2019 for her services to the film and television industry. She also received the Production Guild's Inspiration Award in 2022. And finally, today's co-moderator is our resident production incentives expert, Joe Chianese, Senior Vice President and Production Incentives Practice Leader here at Entertainment Partners, where he specializes in providing productions with legislative consulting, financial, tax, and administrative services for domestic and international production incentives. Joe has over 35 years of experience in accounting, government affairs, production incentives, and tax, and he has formerly held positions at Sony Pictures Entertainment, the Walt Disney Company, ABC Television Network, Paramount Pictures, and Ernst & Young. Well, Joe, it's lovely to see you all, and panelists, thank you for joining us. It's so nice to see all of you. We have quite a bit to get to today, so I'm going to pass things over to you, Joe, and why don't you get our discussion started?
Thank you, Natalie, and welcome everyone, especially welcome to Bianca, Callum, Lyndsay, and Scott. I haven't shared the podium with you before, so welcome. And Samantha, well, it's been a minute when you and I pressed play and discussed the British Film Commission's guidance for working safely during COVID back in June 2020, I think it was. So yeah, so we're here today to talk about the current state of affair in the UK with regards to film and TV production. And wow, what a difference 2.5 years will make, or has made, I should say. Yeah, in addition to talking about the state of the industry, we're going to talk obviously about the tax relief, which is a really great offering that the UK has. We're also going to talk about how the UK infrastructure continues to grow and evolve to support even greater anticipated growth, including Entertainment Partners, my company. We continue to support the UK production community and our clients. We got Pop back in 2021, I believe. And we just had some recent acquisitions with Argonaut Global, a highly regarded payroll company, and FLB Accounting Services, and we've got Sam on the panel to talk more about that. I thought it would make the most sense maybe to jump right in and just maybe ask each panelist personally, from their perspective, why is the UK such a hot spot for production? And I know a lot of these things that you'll bring up now will be items that we go deeper on a little bit later in the conversation, but I'll just start with Samantha. And why is the UK such a hotspot, or continues to be such a hotspot? So I did want to emphasize it's not all of a sudden, right? Everyone, it's something that's not only been evolving, but the UK has always been a go-to destination for producers, and it continues to be for a variety of reasons. And a lot of those reasons we'll be discussing a little later in the panel. So Samantha.
Thank you very much, Joe. Lovely to be working with you again. So any successful content creating jurisdiction has to have the perfect ecosystem, and that's basically what the British, not the British Film Commission. I'd love to take responsibility for all of it, but we support it. But we have to have a certain key elements in order to make that perfect ecosystem. First and foremost is we have a huge skills base in the UK, both on screen and crucially behind the camera. And that's not just in the Southeast, that's something that's built up to be a UK-wide asset now. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we go on. We've got the infrastructure then, we've got studios from purpose-built flagship studios like Pinewood, Shepperton, Warner Brothers Studios, Leavesden. And then obviously up and coming spaces, again, I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but we also have build space, conversions and expansions going on, and that's in production hubs in all 4 nations of the UK. Underpinning all of that is an incredibly, as you've already talked about, transparent, generous, straightforward incentive for content creation, film, high-end television, animation, kids TV. We have additional top-up funding as well in some of the other regions and nations, which we can talk about if your viewers are interested in that later. But we also have incredible production support. We have a very friendly, film-friendly government, which is crucial as well. So it's all of those elements which come into play, and without any one of those, one can't be as successful. But we're very lucky, and through lots of hard work and collaboration, we've got to that point now.
Great. Well, I'm going to jump around a bit. I'll go to Callum right now, since he's got a long history of producing in the UK and outside the UK. Maybe you could distinguish why, in your opinion, UK is a go-to destination for producers.
Thank you. And yeah, very nice to be joining you today. I think the UK, and I've worked in the industry for many years, and the UK definitely has, such a wide knowledge of, the skill set that is in the UK, I think, is second to none. We have great craftsmen. Our heritage from theatre and television, which is and film, just goes back, so many years, and we just have so much resource that we can pull on. And I haven't really experienced it. Maybe I've experienced it in America, but certainly I think England is without question, and the UK is without question the one place that I think any film production can be mounted, and I mean any film production, whether it be musicals, whether it be historical programs or films. I think we just have such a huge diversity of talent that can really mount any scale of any film, of any subject. And to go with that, we have, the facilities. We have amazing studios. Our visual effects companies that are in London are second to none. So, yeah, I think the UK is just, an instant choice for, any of the studios or financiers. And they feel very comfortable making films here.
Callum, you raised as a really good point in that, for a long time, I would say, before this big boom in production worldwide, as well as pre-COVID, a lot of people were driven by just the incentives alone. I think post-COVID and post or within this boom, I think it's a three-legged stool right now. It's not just incentives, but it's crew and it's infrastructure / stages. So I think when producers are looking where to go, it's not just where can I get an incentive, but where can I get, the quality crew and the quality stages and other type services that producers need. So I'm glad you highlighted that point. So thank you. Lyndsay, what about you?
Well, they've said some of my best lines, but beyond that, we literally have some of the world's best talent. And I think Samantha used the word as well, collaboration. We are so good at pulling together as an industry. And I think we really proved that during the COVID protocols and the guidance that Samantha and the BFC led on and we all fed into. We were probably first out the blocks to get back into production and, really big productions as well. I think Jurassic World being one of them, and, some really high-end productions. So yeah, the world's best talent, as they've said, the amazing locations. I was in Belfast last week and seeing the effect of Game of Thrones, Mark Hufham's amazing series, and what an effect that had on the city, regenerating it. As I said, we can make anything happen. We're so good. Anything is possible in the UK.
I love to bring up this point. We'll talk more about it when we talk about the tax relief, but there, at least when I talk to some producers, there's this concern, I would call it a concern about being a British film. And I try to highlight to folks that being a British film is sort of a cultural test component to the tax relief. But if you look at the types of projects that have filmed in the UK, everything is not a Merchant Ivory film or there's so much more ability to be diverse. And we'll talk about the type of productions that happen there. But I just, when people say, oh my God, I'm not going to be a British film, I'm like, well, give Samantha a call. She will make sure you qualify as a British film. So thank you, Lyndsay, for highlighting that.
I was about to say, I think when Captain America qualified as a British film, right, that helped.
It's a game changer.
It was a game changer. Sorry to interrupt.
No. This is a conversation, not a speech point. So thank you. So Bianca, what about you? What about you? What about your thoughts?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah,
the UK, please.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about this, because I think whilst the tax credit did change the whole landscape, particularly in the scale of productions and the number, it really helped to solidify the talent base that we had here. And I think we continually invest and reinvest that. And I feel like we're not only very welcoming to productions coming here, we have all of that talent and infrastructure, but we know how to, well, make a place where actually talent want to spend 6 or 9 months of their life, because I think that's become a bigger issue as the industry's grown globally. Where do people want to be? But we also we just have such a robustness. I mean, the PRS scheme during COVID that acted as an insurance claim just meant that the studios, shows that were shooting abroad just came here because there was some security, and they came here with such confidence because, as everybody said, it's sort of we can do any range of shows, and we can cover America here as well. I mean, I had a feature film on our slate that was budgeted to be shot here for 1990s Southern US, and we can accomplish that here. So it sort of doesn't stop, but also we're at the cutting edge, I think, of culture. We invest in diversity and inclusion and wellness on set and all of those things that are progressing. I think intimacy coordinators we picked up really quickly here. So we always sort of seem to be at the progressive leaning side of where production's going.
Yeah, and one thing, and Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong on the date, but TV in the UK, as it relates to qualifying for the tax relief, is relatively new. I mean, it's about 8 years old. I think it became, was it 2014 when a TV first became an eligible type of production? And I remember talking to clients, and the thought was that there'd just be maybe a small blip in terms of the amount of TV production that quickly shifted to the UK. But maybe all of you might want to talk about what a boom TV has brought to the overall UK production community. Samantha,
yeah,
about that?
Absolutely. So the tax relief for high-end television was released April 2013, but you're right, it kind of really kicked off the following year. But I think the biggest change, Belfast, for one of the reasons that Lyndsay highlighted, was actually one of the ways that we demonstrated to government what could be achieved with a robust tax relief, because we used Game of Thrones to say we could be having this in all parts of the UK. It was, as Lyndsay said, Mark Huffam's drive and the open-mindedness of Northern Ireland Screen and local government in Northern Ireland that saw this opportunity and grabbed it and created Belfast Titanic Studios. And we were able to use that model to demonstrate the market failure to government, to say, we're not attracting any inward investment. And furthermore, what we're also seeing is Indigenous UK projects, BBC projects paid for by the UK public, are having to go outside the UK to be shot in lower cost jurisdictions. So you're right, it really has, to quote Callum, being a game changer. We went from kind of the greater southeast of England, London southeast, being a hub for major studio tentpole features and lots of Indigenous production. Let's be clear here. Actually, there was already fantastic TV drama being produced in all over the UK before this point, but building the tax relief enabled those areas to invest in crew and in infrastructure. So we went from this huge big hub in the southeast with small areas of fantastic high quality domestic television being produced, to having 7 robust production hubs in all 4 nations of the UK, allowing us to attract these huge inward investment projects. And inward investment, I mean internationally financed, US financed or co-financed, and whether that was original productions coming from the States and being made, or from fantastic UK independent production companies working with US financiers to make it, because the IP in the UK is second to none as well. So, to have that Indigenous talent and fantastic IP, and then to have the investment coming in from overseas, was just this perfect storm. So, and we've seen the results of that ever since 2013, really, and the introduction of the high-end TV tax relief.
So Sam, from your perspective with regards to FLB and just sort of the production accounting consulting services, and what are you seeing as to why the UK is sort of the destination?
Well, to echo the depth of talent across all departments, I think is a huge draw for producing in the UK. I think, as touched on, the diversity of content that's created, be that large features, high-end TV, unscripted. In the UK, anything can be made, and we're seeing projects being greenlit in various sizes of budget, from the big tentpoles right the way through to small independently financed productions. And I think if you look at the current context in the UK, the inward investment is particularly attractive because of where we are with the pound. The pound is really weak. So for inward investment into the UK is at this perfect moment, really, really attractive. Then mirror that with the continuing investment from the UK government, both creating great incentives, regional incentives, but also the private investment to build the infrastructure. I mean, we're seeing, where we're based, we've seen 2 big studio lots just kind of come out the ground in the last 2 years. Shinfield Studios, which is a few miles down the road from us, has 25 sound stages. It's a £150 million investment to build really world-class facilities. And that is a leading indicator of the commitment to the UK on infrastructure, the commitment from the government, then the fact that we have a weak pound. I think the UK is the place to be right now.
Just to give the audience a quick highlight, in 2021, the UK had about 6.7 billion of production spend for film and TV, and it's anticipated to go up as high as 11.2 billion. Sorry, my God, 11.2 by 2025. And then what that equated to is about 220,000 jobs created between 2017 and 2019. And then there's been a lot of articles talking about the need for more crew to meet that additional demand. So let's talk a bit about the crew, talk about the existing crew. And I'll start with you, Lyndsay. Let's talk about the existing crew and what's being done within the UK to continue to develop that crew, including bringing in more. We've got a lot of questions from our audience in terms of how a North American crew person can get more involved in UK production, but I'll let you lead the conversation in terms of what's going on with the availability of crew and as well as training for crews.
Sure. I mean, I think we have really stepped up to the challenge and taken this as a positive thing. There's a chance to invest and to really grow our talent base. So we're really embracing it. And there's been some really, really innovative projects that have happened. I mean, we partnered at the Production Guild with the British Film Commission, but we're partnering smartly. So we mirrored it to the BFC Stage Space Support Development Strategy and developed training programs for each of those hubs. So we were able to bring on an additional 230 production team personnel as coordinators, secretaries, line producers, location managers. So that's just sort of one example. There's schemes like that happening all over. We've just had the British Film Institute has just done a major skills review, bringing all stakeholders together to really look forensically at how we do this, how do we create scale at pace, but also legacy as well. So there's some really exciting initiatives happening. I think one of the challenges is to inform people about the other career paths that perhaps are less well known. So, typically on a university course in film production, film and television, people will know about the producer, the director, the writer, but don't know about the production accounts pathway or locations or some of the things which perhaps don't seem as sexy, but actually is such an exciting career path to get into. So I think part of the work that we have to do is to get into schools, before they go to, make their kind of career choices, to say, look, you can do this, or you can work in construction. Have you thought about doing that on a film production? So there's lots of exciting things happening, and I think sort of talking about why the UK is such a good place to be for film production. We're really organised. We come together really quickly and look to see, as I say, how we can have that scale impact and really high quality industry standard training, because there's no point training up accountants. We do programs for step up to production accountants or assistant production accountants training schemes. They need to be industry ready at the end of that. So that's really intense, quite expensive training to do. You can't just do that overnight. So we're really lucky that we've got that skill base that we can draw on and contemporary expertise to make sure we are giving the very best advice and best training that we can. So much is happening. It is a challenge, but it's one that we are, totally embracing going forward.
Callum, what about you in terms of your thoughts about the crews in the UK currently and where the training initiatives are going?
I mean, it's interesting picking up on what Lyndsay was saying. I mean, you know, there's always talk that we're short on crews because of the volume of work we have, but we've never not been able to service a movie or a TV series that's come to the UK, to my knowledge. And again, you know, we step up. There are plenty of training schemes going on. The BFI has run them. You know, Disney, who I'm working for at the moment, they have a trainee scheme that they're actively, you know, involving people and going out to the colleges and going out to, you know, further afield, because we know that in the next 5 years we have to fulfill a big commitment to training, you know, crew for future productions. And, you know, I think to get the crew, you have to go into the schools. I think, again, just picking up on what Lyndsay was saying, that there are opportunities for people in the film industry. I don't think there is a job that doesn't exist within the film industry that covers so many areas, whether you want to be makeup, hair, costume, a chef, a lawyer, even, you know, a dentist. I mean, literally, there are jobs for every single profession within the industry. And I think it's getting into the schools. I think you have to get in when people, I'd go really early. I'd be having people going into the schools when people are kind of, you know, 11, 12 years old, to let them know so they can make choices about what they want to study. But there is a lot of training going on. We do a lot of trainee schemes on the films that we're doing. We very much encourage every department to bring on trainees, and we encourage them to bring on people who have no experience. Just to be very clear, we would rather put somebody in every department on a film who has come in, who doesn't have the experience, because I think we're all slightly guilty of wanting to use the people that we've used before, because you know what their skills are, but we actively encourage people to bring on people who have no experience, but people who want to work within the industry. And I've known no person who's come into the industry and done their first film who has then left to go and do something else.
Can I just add to that? That's such an important point about diversity and inclusion and equity. You know, we're all really trying to open our networks and be really proactive on this.
Yeah.
So the Production Guild of Great Britain, we have our Diversity and Inclusion Action Group, but there's so many other schemes out there. You know, we really want a diverse mix of voices, and we all realise that we have to make the effort to expand our networks. And, you know, it's always, like Callum says, it's always easier to think, right, quickly, we've got a crew up, let's go. But we're making so many strides. And I know, Bianca, you're fantastic on this. You've been putting together toolkits to help us with that as well.
Yeah,
I was just
I mean,
gonna
I
ask
think
Bianca to talk about that, please.
Yeah, in many ways we're ahead of the curve, but when you have a skills gap, it's such a great opportunity to open the door wider than you ever have before. And I think people are more receptive to looking at their recruitment process in a different way and refreshing it. I think, you know, there was a time when it was just the tried and tested route, and we can't do that anymore, which is wonderful. You know, there are so many initiatives, and I think some of them have existed for quite a long time, but what's changing is that their connection to industry and industry's willingness to engage with them is allowing us to hold ourselves more accountable than we ever have about our recruitment practices. And to that end, the talent is there. And it's like Callum was saying, like, we need to get into the schools. I know, talking earlier, there's a new T level for 17 and 18-year-olds, which is going to be launched next year. And that, what's great about that, I expect it will take some time to be, you know, to develop and bed in. But what's great about it is that it's national. And I think, you know, us looking at, you know, attracting people into regional hubs and from any backgrounds and wide backgrounds is a massive priority. We cannot just work with, you know, one person with one type of background. And there's like you say, there's a directory that we share on the Guild of, you know, it's 26 pages of different organizations and initiatives that help support that within just scripted television and film production in the UK. So there's a really wide breadth of approaches into this. There's still more to be done, but there's definitely, a lot of people who are it's becoming more embedded in the practice. And it's, obviously we have studios with goals, and we have, even just this week, I've been filling out the BFI diversity standards in order to be able to put our production up for BAFTA awards. And that's something that we never used to have. And it just continues to grow, I think.
Great. Hey, Sam, I want to jump back to production accountants. I know Lyndsay brought that up, but with the production accountants being the backbone of any production, and we see the same problem here in the US in terms of a shortage of accountants. But maybe you could talk a bit about what your firm does in terms of what also you're doing to help promote or create the next generation of production accountants.
Yeah, happy to, Joe. I mean, I think as mentioned, there's lots of different initiatives to train from grassroots, and that's something that we are absolutely committed to. So we are bringing school leavers and graduates into FLB, training them through professional qualifications to be accountants, but also training them on the nuance of production so that they can join shows at a junior level and then progress through to ultimately to production accountants and financial controller roles. And I think it's really important that we start at that grassroots level. And we, as Bianca was mentioning, we bring a diverse group in and really invest in growing those teams. And very much what we're doing as a firm is taking what would have been a very traditional accounting route and then partnering with production so that we can train both accountants and on the nuance of production to be really valuable to these shows that are coming to the UK.
That's important. And I guess what's really important to bring up here is that, and again, we'll talk more about tax relief a little bit later, but especially here in the US, we get a lot of criticisms about incentive programs sort of being unnecessary subsidies to these large studios. But at the end of the day, these are job creation acts. And I think here in the US, for the first time in a long time, especially in 2022, we saw such a large number of either new incentive or enhanced incentives. So I think what we're seeing now is that these states and cities are realizing that incentives do drive or draw productions, but more importantly, they create and maintain jobs. So I'm excited that we all are on the same page about that. The other thing that we're hearing a lot about is sound stages, and that's also sort of been in the news a lot, whether it's private equity acquiring sound stages or expanding stages, new stages. So Samantha, I'll jump back to you. Maybe you could talk about what's going on in the UK in terms of sound stages. And I've also read somewhere that there's an expectation that they're going to double, the UK will double its studio space by 2025. And is there any sort of concern that might be too much? So I'll let you take it from there.
Well, we're on our way towards that figure. So in 2020, 2 weeks before we were all locked down for COVID, the British government responded to a business case that the British Film Commission had put forward to explain that in order to capitalize on the huge amount of content creation globally, we needed to get a more robust stage space studio pipeline in the UK. So we were given 4.6 million over 3 years in order to work with the commercial sector and our public partners throughout all 4 nations of the UK to help kickstart new stage space developments. And there was already a lot of expansion and interest in building stage space in the UK underway. So since 2020, we've seen, I think the basic stage space footprint, and I'm talking about spaces that were big enough to support features and high-end television, was around 3.2 million square feet for the UK, and it's already increased, or it will do by the end of the financial year 2023 to 5.3 million square feet. So it's like over a 2 million square feet increase in space. There are a lot of other projects in the pipeline. Some are going to have very convoluted planning processes to go through before they reach fruition. Some of them we're already seeing, some of those where they're using demountable stages or they're doing expansions and conversions have already happened. We've seen big expansions, for example, at Bovingdon and Bray, and they're now supporting season 2 of Amazon Studios' Lords of the Rings, which we're incredibly proud of. But what we're also seeing very excitingly is expansions both in the English regions and in the devolved administration, so in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. As regards over saturation, everybody's focus is on crew. We are still shepherding through these incredibly important stage-based projects that are happening, but of course we need crew in order to make sure we've got enough people to fill those stages. So that's why there are all these training initiatives going on in tandem, and that's where that collaboration that Lyndsay and I have talked about is so crucial, that you can't have one part of the process going on completely ignorant of the other. Underpinned by government, commercial and public agencies are working together to ensure that we get the skills pipeline working alongside the stage-based pipeline. But it is an exciting time for growth in the UK, and our government has recognised and has been very enthusiastic on a couple of points. One around levelling up, which is obviously about decentralising business and making sure that the regions of England outside London and the three devolved nations, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, are seeing as much benefit from growth as London and the South East, and just the growth principle. And we are thankfully one of the few industries that is still growing, with the infrastructure that we've talked about. But it needs this continued concerted efforts to ensure that the growth in stage space is matched with the focus on the skills pipeline, which is what we're doing at the moment.
There's an interesting sort of trend here in the US, in California, New Mexico and New Jersey, where they're either attached additional annual funding or no funding caps to producers that are producing on either new or renovated stages or investing in stages. So there's clearly the states are definitely trying to incentivize producers to work with the development of stages. So it's clearly a worldwide issue in terms of the need for stages. So clearly we're all in the process of getting there.
Yeah, we will never, the British Film Commission and government will never invest in bricks and mortar. It's not our business.
Right.
But we're just there to help facilitate, make introductions between financiers and those who have the projects in the UK, just to work on film friendly and production friendly policies around planning and so forth. One of the things that we're most proud of, which will be a real legacy of this, what we're calling the Stage Space Support and Development Initiative, which government have funded, DCMS have funded it, is we've produced this studio design guide, and that's got everything in there from acoustics to architecture, surveying. We've just commissioned one on virtual production volumes. And one of the key parts of that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point anyway, is sustainability, both embodied carbon, but how sustainability works across expansion, new builds and conversions. And whilst some of the work we're doing is commercially sensitive, so we'll just be releasing it to stage-based projects on a case-by-case basis, the sustainability work we're doing is something we're going to release widely, because obviously it's a benefit bigger picture to the world. So we're really proud of that legacy, of this focus on stage space, which has been supported by UK government.
That's great. Lyndsay, is there anything you want to add to the topic in terms of what's going on with stage development in the UK?
I think Samantha's covered it really well, but from our point of view at the Production Guild, we have developed nations and regions hubs to support that stage-based development. So again, it's all about how we collaborate and join everything up together so that we are able to give and have those conversations on the ground and to support, add value. We run an availability list, so we're helping to develop those sort of crew and production team databases as well. So we're all pushing towards the same goal, which is what makes it so fantastic in the UK, and all trying to sort of do our bit to make that work so we can keep this boom long continuing.
That's great.
I'll just make one more point, Joe, because I'm conscious that I'm talking too much. But one of the key things, everyone on this screen will have been approached by somebody saying, we've got 200,000 square feet of fantastic warehouse space 3 hours from London or 3 hours from Belfast. And the key part of what we're doing and what our colleagues are doing is around feasibility. We won't support any project that isn't already based within commutable distance of a crew base. with the right investment and motivation, you can put stages up fairly quickly. To build a world-class crew base takes much, much longer. So we are already focusing development in those areas, though I have to say there are nascent areas coming up, like the Midlands, for example, where we're going to see exciting things happening more and more, and other parts of the country, actually. But yeah, one of the things that we are telling people that are worried about the oversaturation is the focus is very much within existing crew hubs.
So one of the issues that I'm reading a lot about, and I was going to go to Callum and Bianca on this, is sort of cost of production, whether it's supply chain issues or recession issues, and also side by side with the foreign exchange rate benefit, which obviously helps the inbound producers. So Bianca, what are your sort of your thoughts about what's going on in terms of cost of production? Is that something leveling off, or is that something that's going to be something that producers will need to continue to factor in to their production plans in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to factor in. I mean, I think we've been dealing with, a very competitive industry in recent years, and we have to adapt to the changing of market rates, and also try and work together with, I guess in my case, with my peers as other HOPs. We're a very solid community, and we share information and share approaches to make sure that we're aligned. But I think, at the end of the day, we can't control all of the economy, and we have to adapt. And I think, the people who are funding us to make these shows and buying our content have to work with us, and we all have to pivot around necessary increases when they exist. I guess I'm wondering if Callum has something more specific in mind with tackling this as an issue, and I'd love any advice he might have on how to handle.
That's where I was going next, Callum.
We work in a global industry, so the UK has to remain competitive because when we're looking at films and when the studios are looking at films, they'll look at multiple countries before they decide where they're going to go and make the film. We obviously are very keen for them to come to the UK for the reasons that we've all discussed. There's a great exchange rate, the talent, the diversity, and we have facilities to do it. But we do have to remain commercially competitive in our rates. And, I think like anything, when there's a boom, rates tend to go up. I think we as the part of the production guild and as producers, we do try and say to people, we have to remain, commercially compatible to the other regions. And inflation is going up globally because of what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine, and oil prices. So, inflation is global, and obviously we have to take that into account. That is going to affect the cost of materials. It is going to affect how much people need to earn, but at the same time, I think that's happening across the world. We just have to be reactive to it and remain competitive.
Well, we were all reacted to COVID, right? So we'll just have to be
correct. And you look at what we did with COVID, as Lyndsay and Samantha said. I mean, we were the first country to get going again, and that was because very good protocols were put in place, and they were big movies. They were shooting the Batman, they were shooting the Jurassic World franchise. I mean, they were huge movies, and multiple television shows were happening at the same time. And we did it. We mounted it. We kept it as cost effective as possible. But what it did was it made a safe environment for us to continue. And we were one of the first industries really to get back.
So Sam, I wanted to ask you a question because I always get is, how is Brexit affecting the UK, specifically UK production? And typically I've been hearing not at all, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear, Sam, how is Brexit, if at all, affecting production in the UK?
Not at all. No, I think, Joe, I mean, Brexit, we haven't seen the true impact of really yet because COVID happened. And I think that's really, COVID has been the big event. So, we went into COVID, as Callum outlines. I mean, it was great that the UK came through that and productions were able to restart with support from the UK government. So I think, at the moment, COVID has been the 2 years, really the last 2 years has been a COVID impact. Brexit per se, I don't see a huge impact yet. We're still, but we're still early days into the full impact of what Brexit means for the UK. But I don't think it is, it's been a big driver for productions when you look at the context of what's happened over the last 2 years with COVID.
So speaking of COVID, I'll jump back to Samantha for a second, because I know we did this 2.5 years ago. Are there any specific COVID-19 protocols still in place? I know here in the US, the unions have kept most of those protocols in place. Any update with regards to that in the UK?
So there aren't any UK government protocols around it any longer. However, as you've noted, because there are US union protocols still in place, and the UK hosts a huge amount of US production, all of our US inward investment productions still have COVID protocols in place, pretty stringent ones. I'm sure you'll see people wandering around with masks in corridors behind Callum. You're in the States, aren't you, Callum? But so all our US clients are still carrying out COVID protocols. We still have our COVID guidance up on our website. Most productions are self-imposing COVID protocols, and it's the same. We always say our guidance was always there to be used in association with the production's own COVID protocols and their production specific risk assessment, and all productions, we certainly hope, are assessing risks, COVID risks, but also just for usual health and safety focus. So whilst there are no government policies in place now for COVID, there are certainly COVID protocols happening across the UK film and TV industry.
Right. So I want to spend a few minutes before I want to make sure we leave time for tax relief, because I know that's something our audience want to hear more about, even though I do refer to the UK tax relief as pretty close to the perfect incentive program. But maybe I'll get Bianca, talk a bit about your project, Gangs of London, where it shoots, and anything else you wanted to highlight for the audience.
Sure. I mean, well, in the context of the tax credit, the clue's in the title. So we London, and although you'd be surprised what comes out of their writers' room, as certainly season 2 was shot in London and surrounds. I mean, you always have for something of that scale, which is really a different location every day. We did have overnights in, within commutable, say, several hours of London maximum. And the tax credit is central to the finance plan for the project. It's absolutely essential to be able to be making a show of that scale, and it's much appreciated. And as we have other other projects in our slate that have sort of a strong foreign base or foreign elements, I grow to appreciate, the UK tax credit in its perfection even more so. I was with some representatives from a country which doesn't have a film commission, doesn't have a tax credit, has a tax credit without a film commission, but it's got a cap. And it's a massive struggle because they don't have that recognition that we do here, which is that it's really good for our economy.
Great. So Callum, I know you just wrapped Snow White, and I can't recall, was Snow White was mostly Germany, or how much was it in the UK as well?
It was completely in the UK.
Oh wow! Yeah. Okay, I was wrong.
It's set in kind of a magical European landscape, but yes, it was all done in the UK. The majority of the movie was made at Pinewood Studios. We used some fantastic local locations. We then went out across a lot of the UK with a visual effects unit, creating our world. But yes, it was completely shot in the UK across multiple stages at Pinewood Studios. I think we had between like 9 and 11 stages. So, these kind of films demand a big footprint. And then on the other films that we, just talking about the Disney movies that I've done, like Mary Poppins Returns, again, that was made completely in the UK. We shot on some very landmark London locations, Buckingham Palace, around Tower Bridge. We used a lot of stages at Shepperton Studios, Pinewood Shepperton. And I think the other thing to kind of mention is that there is an absolute direct correlation for these for inward investment into the UK with films and locations. I've experienced this globally, working on many of the James Bond movies, that we've seen after we've gone there, that there's a big increase in tourism, which is hotels, it's jobs, it's investment. But talking specifically about the UK, I mean, the kind of films that have been made there, that have shot on the London locations, like, Notting Hill, Four Weddings and a Funeral, the working title movies, Mary Poppins, they drive a huge amount of tourism to the UK. Mm-hmm. So that is another inward investment that comes back to the government. And I think the biggest example of it was probably, I think that kind of really got recognized was when they did Lord of the Rings down in New Zealand. I mean, it changed their travel industry. So yeah, films has a direct correlation on multiple other industries within the UK.
What about 1917, such an epic film? Where was that shot within the UK?
We shot 1917, which fantastic film to do with Sam Mendes. We shot that principally on Salisbury Plain, is where we shot for about 8 weeks, which is land owned by the MOD, because we wanted, obviously it was to look like France. We wanted a very flat landscape and we didn't want to be surrounded by trees close to us. So it gave us the scope we needed for the movie. But we also shot at Bovingdon, which is an airfield, relatively, within about 15 minutes of Leavesden Studios. And that's where we built one of our big trench runs there. And then we went to Glasgow and got involved with the local film commissions in Glasgow. We shot in Newcastle. And it's very important to say, when we go to these places, in Glasgow, Newcastle, any of these places, we absolutely pull on the local resources in terms of crew. We want to pick up as many of the local crew as we can, but also to use the local companies, all our suppliers. We don't want to be sending everything from London if we're in Glasgow, anything that we could pick up locally. And, years ago, I was involved in just talking about the regions. Back in 2000, I was involved in producing films for a company called DNA, which had a deal at Universal. I mean, we were doing 2 films in Glasgow at the same time. And there was a wealth of crew up there. We took very few people from London. And that was, in the early stages, because, Glasgow, Manchester, a lot of these areas, and Cardiff, you've got to remember that they had a huge infrastructure from television, from the BBC. And now when you look and you go there, I mean, the shows that are done in these centres outside of London, I mean, Cardiff, his Dark Materials, which is an incredible show, incredible. The production values. I went down there, we were looking at doing a major Universal musical that's now, it's happening in London now, but we very strongly considered doing that in Cardiff. And our plan was to use a lot of, local expertise down there. I mean, it's exceptional. So I think, we were, as Samantha said, we were very kind of southeast central. That's completely changed. And I think Game of Thrones and, the shows that are shooting up in Glasgow have completely changed that footprint. And I did a movie in Manchester. And again, we took very few crew from London and we used a Manchester / Liverpool crew, and we had the best experience.
Well, I want to spend the last few minutes talking about the tax relief, Samantha and Sam, but I just also wanted to highlight, because I just saw it in the trades this morning, and I just feel like I'm reading this in other places, that there seems to be, I don't want to call it a shift, but clearly gaming is becoming a big part of the producers. Just this morning I read that Hasbro is considering selling E1 and focusing more on their gaming division. So I know that gaming is a part of or qualified as part of the tax relief. So Sam and Samantha, maybe we'll just spend the last few minutes talking about what the tax relief is. And no, Sam, I know you have a hard stop at 6 your time, so maybe give your thoughts about the tax relief, and then we'll leave it with Samantha to wrap it up.
Fabulous. Yeah, thanks. Happy to, Joe. Yeah, I think as we've discussed, the tax relief in the UK is really attractive. Covers all sorts of content. So film and high-end TV is probably the principal tax credit reliefs that your audience would be interested in. But as I think mentioned before, there's animation, children's content, video games. There's a whole raft of reliefs available for content creation, and as well, alongside the kind of flagship government tax reliefs, there are local incentives to support shooting in the devolved administration. So shooting in Wales, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, as Samantha's touched on. The headlines. I think you're sending out some content to the user list for this, Joe, in terms of a blog on tax incentives. But in terms of the headlines, up to 25% tax relief on qualifying spend, which is defined as up to 80% of the core expenditure, or the spend in the UK, whichever is the lesser. So it's a really attractive regime for film, for the film tax credits. It's for films that are intended for theatrical release, and for high-end TV, it's for release for broadcast, either TV or internet. The only nuance there, it's a minimum of 1 million per hour to qualify for high-end TV, but that does cover that covers all sorts of content. So it covers documentaries as well as drama, comedy. The things that aren't covered are live events and kind of quiz shows and the like. But it is a fairly wide-ranging, as you say, sort of best-in-class incentive regime that really encourages productions to come to the UK and make great content.
Thanks, Sam. I know you have to drop off. So Samantha, I know that we don't have a lot of time, but anything you sort of want to specifically highlight? I know we touched on the cultural test, and I love to talk about the whole used and consumed concept for spend. So anything you'd like to highlight before we jump to audience Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. I think used or consumed is a great place to start. That's a concept which basically dictates that any element, whether that be cast, crew, prop, script, irrespective of its nationality, where it's originating, if you're physically using it in the UK between pre-production and post-production, including VFX, then it's qualifying for the tax relief. And that includes above the line elements. So even if you've got a big US star attached to your project, if your UK company is set up right, and that can just be a limited company, off the shelf company, if it's set up right and you're qualifying, then the salary will be qualifying for the tax relief, which is pretty unique to the UK, and it was very much created in order to bring as much production as possible to the United Kingdom, which is what's allowed us to invest in ourselves, as it were.
Also, I think the inclusion of participations is also quite unique to the UK relief as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is entirely our unique selling points. It doesn't exist in any other global incentive. And just today in the autumn statement, despite everything that's going on in global economies, government's just underpinned its belief and support of the tax relief, which is very gratifying.
And the last point I want to just cover really quickly, because I know when I talk to clients, there's some initial concern, and that's the cultural test and the ability to qualify. So if you want to just touch on that a little bit, and how your office assists with producers in making sure that they meet those qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is the projects that, no major project that shoots in the UK doesn't qualify. So if you look at some of the projects, we talked about Captain America earlier, the Star Wars saga, the Marvel features and TV shows that have qualified. It's called a cultural test. It's a points test, but it's very, very inclusive. We decided ourselves to keep it European even after we left the EU. So it's about European content. It's about European cast and crew, residents and nationals working in the UK. And the definition of UK project is very, very broad. And we also make sure that we have the subtext and behind the camera assets being recognised. So we incentivise diversity and inclusion on screen and behind the camera, for example. And it's very broad. So we have an amazing service within BFI, our partner organisation called the Certification Unit, who are fantastically user-friendly. And they'll work with applicants to qualify for the projects as British, or you just come to see me and my colleagues in the UK office, or our brilliant colleagues in our Los Angeles office, and we'll take you through. Happy to sign NDAs and go through scripts, or just to give you the broad outlines and make the appropriate introductions. It's we like to be as supportive as any of our clients want us to be.
Right. So Natalie, before we wrap this up, do you want to read off a couple of questions from the audience, and then we'll call it a day?
Hi, Joe. Sure. We are at the end of our time. So I'm going to lump a couple of questions together, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll do our best to answer some things on the production community website. But we've gotten some questions about how crew and how producers from North America can get involved in UK production or get involved with British production companies working in the US. So if you have any last tidbits that we can add for the crew and the producers out there who would like to get involved, who may be in Canada or in the United States, we can leave it there. So Lyndsay, if you'd like to jump in.
I think it's probably Samantha, really. You'll probably get the most calls coming through to your office, but I'll let Samantha answer, and happy to join in too.
Very briefly, we have a pretty pragmatic immigration system. We have codes of practice specifically for film and television. However, it wouldn't be a matter of US crew just coming to work in the UK. They'd have to be employed by a UK company. They would have to be sponsored to work in the UK, and they'd have to comply with the codes of practice, which is very pragmatic, frankly. But you couldn't just fly to the UK and expect to be hired. That's obviously, we have to prioritise promotion of our Indigenous cast and crew first and foremost. But certainly we have the freedom in the UK to make creative choices around heads of departments. Certainly all above the line, you're allowed to bring in international cast and crew where creative choices are made, and also to help fill skills gaps. So it is pragmatic, it's very practical, and it's fairly straightforward.
Excellent. So I know we're out of time, Natalie, but I just wanted to highlight to the audience, I think for the most part, I covered everything I wanted to, except co-production. So maybe Samantha, you and I down the road can just do one of these specific to co-productions. I think it's a question I get quite a bit in terms of how the UK partners with other countries and other producers. So that would be an interesting follow-up to this webinar. So Natalie, do you want to just wrap us up?
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, panelists. And thank you to everyone who joined us today and has stuck with us, even though we did run a little bit long today. We did want to let everyone know that we are going to continue the discussion about costs of production, and our payroll tax expert, Becky Harshberger, will be discussing North American as well as international considerations and changes coming in the new year. So if you'd like to join us, we encourage you to on December 8th for that discussion. If you would like to catch a repeat, a recording of today's webinar, you can always head over to ep.com/masterseries and get the recording on demand at any time. We have over 65 episodes available for viewing and covering the gamut of topics, including COVID-19, industry and production news, incentives, payroll tax, legislation, and we also have regional spotlights. So please join us there. And if you happen to be looking for any guidance on production incentives or financing in North America, the UK, or beyond, our team of experts is here to ensure that your production gets the best incentive and financing guidance in the industry. So please reach out to us and visit us at ep.com/production incentives to find out more. Thank you again to our panelists and to our audience today for tuning in. We hope that you all stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Master Series.